Welcome to the Bloomberg Forum. I'm Nora Macaluso. I'm talking today with John Nowell. He's President and Chief Executive of Global Partner Ventures, which runs the Defense Enterprise Fund. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you, Nora. I'm glad to be here today.
Why don't you start by telling us a little bit about your fund and how it got started, where it's going?
Sure, Nora. We're direct equity investors. We have a long-term view. The fund was initially started to reduce the threat of bomb scientists going off to some other place because they didn't have a job. And so we concentrate on converting the technological and human potential of the best of the minds of the old Soviet Union into new ventures that they make things that are profitable and they're proud of. So we've concentrated mostly on telecoms, information technology, and material sciences, which breaks down into what nuclear weapons scientists used to do, what strategic command and control guys used to do, and what a few of the chemical and biological weapons scientists used to do, because there's a pretty good fit between those. So we're market driven, but we have in fact sought some policy objectives as well. At this point we've got about $50 million invested in 14 joint ventures. About 3,000 former bomb scientists or engineers now at work in those ventures making new things that are profitable, that are actually good for the Russian economy and good for the West. And the fund is returning some pretty interesting numbers. You know, when you do direct equity, it's hard to get a fix on where you are until you harvest, but I would say that we have a very competitive portfolio at this point.
And how have recent events in Russia changed your outlook, or have they?
Well, Nora, you know, if you look back at the last 700 years of Russian history, it's really never been any different. Russia has always been quite turbulent, and when you're looking for extraordinary rewards, you have to look at some extraordinary risks. The currency devaluation is actually a needful step. It's been counted for or discounted in the market about 3 times for the amount that they've actually devalued at this point. So that really didn't affect us terribly. It'll affect 2 groups a little differently. It'll affect the day traders and the people who are trying to trade stocks and bonds, who need a little bit greater degree of investor confidence than people who work there every day like we do. I mean, we're still looking at an economy that is running. And it will affect the Russian people because it will be much more difficult for them to achieve the kind of integration with the West that they would like. And that step is actually key to the changes, because in Russia, political changes drive economic changes. And I think what we're looking at here is sort of the last gasp of the inability of the Russian government to manage public finance. And I actually think this is probably about the last time they can bungle this one.
What do you think about today's announcement they'll delay the debt restructuring?
Actually, I think that's probably a good thing. The initial wave of concern was that foreign investors would get a bad deal, that Russians would actually end up getting about 3 times as much money back out of the restructuring as Western investors, and that of course would be just poison for any time the government has to go back into international markets. I think this delay will allow the Russians a chance to get their house in order.
And you think this is the last gasp? Have we hit bottom, or is there lower to go?
Well, you should never underestimate anybody's ability to sort of muddle downward. I think that Russia has a long history of being able to persevere. This market trough might be fairly lengthy, but I think we're pretty close to the bottom. I think that in 5 years, Russia will be a lead economy, not a lag economy. All the fundamentals are there, all the natural resources are there, all the human potential is there. The thing they just haven't gotten right yet is how to do governance, and I think we're getting close to that.
Do you think anything's going to come of President Clinton's visit next month?
Well, I think it might be a better vacation for him than the current one at Martha's Vineyard. He will be further away from the American press. I think that if he's taking a long-term view, he'll do a lot to bolster Kirilenko, who's the new prime minister, who's doing a lot to instigate some reforms, and he'll spend a little time with Yeltsin. So I think it's good. It's good that we don't lose interest in Russia.
And as far as your investments, how do you pick a good joint venture partner?
Well, the most important thing in any direct equity investment is always people. It's never the deal, it's always the people. If the people are good, and in Russia there are many, many wonderful scientists, engineers, and some good businessmen now. If you pick good people, they'll find a way to make it work. In our ventures, we've had some extraordinarily good luck with venture partners, and we've also had we've had a few in the past that were not so great, which I think almost anyone who's done business there could say. It's important to stick to what you know. It's important to do things that you already knew how to do. That's why we've stayed so close to telecoms and information technology, because we already understood how the fundamentals of those businesses worked in the West. That keeps us away from things that may be very attractive, but that we don't understand. Because we're about more than money. We're about actually helping grow a business. And if we can't add value, then we shouldn't be there.
Any particular ventures you're looking at right now?
Well, we're in the process of finishing something called MPS Telecom, which is a fiber optic backbone that'll run basically from Asia to Europe. It's the shortest route from Tokyo to Helsinki, about 1/3 the distance of the normal fiber optic cable. And it's a win-win strategy because it will allow the Russian Ministry of Rails to actually control its trains much better, the largest railroad in the world, which is in desperate need of some upgrading. But it also allows for the opening of the information superhighway all across 11 time zones of Russia.
And as far as the IMF, do you do a lot of business with projects that they fund?
Actually, no. We're kind of a small shop, and we have stayed away from other or from multinationals just because they're doing big macroeconomic work, and our job is really to pick and build good businesses. And those two are, I mean, the IMF is talking billions of dollars, I'm talking millions, and small numbers of millions usually.
Final question. Do you think Russia will get more money from overseas?
Well, I think at the moment the liquidity crisis there could be helped by a little more money, but I also think that it's really, at the end of the day, up to the Russians to prove that they can manage this and that they can, in fact, put their own house in order. And I think they want to do that, and I think they'll succeed. But it's really up to them. They're brilliant people. They have wonderful natural resources. They have everything going for them, and they can do this. They may need a little help in the short term, but I'm looking forward to the day when they pay the debts back and when they actually become net investors in the rest of the world.
Thanks, John.
Thank you, Nora.